Hey guys, I'm Zach Buckle and welcome back to the Farm Table West YouTube channel. In this episode, I'm going to show you some plants that have still grown this entire winter, even though it's December 28th, we have less than 9 hours of daylight, and we've had below zero temperatures outside. So the reason why this is such a big deal is because these have been harvested once in November, which is already pretty much past the last 10-hour day. And they've regrown to the point where I could pick the entire bed again and get a full harvest. And we are smack dab in the middle of what's called the Persephone period, where daylight is less than 10 hours. Plants are not supposed to grow in the Persephone period in northern climates where you get less than 10 hours of daylight. And that's why this is such a big deal, because this is basically a free harvest of a whole nother crop. And this will probably regrow again after I harvest it in the next couple weeks. So once we get into February 4th, the plants will start to regrow way faster, because then daylight exceeds 10 hours again. And you get a whole nother harvest in February and March. So basically this just means lots more food in the middle of the winter when you really don't even think about gardening or having any kind of fresh food. So I'm obsessed with the winter growing because of that, and it's such a cool method of producing food that most people don't think about. It's just we're kind of at the cutting edge of it. A lot of people are still figuring out the best ways to do it. And in Wyoming, where I'm at, we have a 120-day growing season, and there's just not a lot of time. That's the shortest growing season in the country. So the whole idea of winter growing is a big deal, because that basically means we could actually produce food almost the entire year if you know what you're doing and you figure it out. And the only way to figure it out is basically trying it and seeing what works, because I've been doing this winter growing thing for 4 years now, and this is really the first year that I've figured out how to do it well. It's not just because this is a fancy high tunnel greenhouse and we have a climate battery in here. A lot of it just has to do with putting this row cover stuff on at the right times and double covering when it gets really cold. And if you figure all that stuff out and you keep the plant alive, it will keep growing when there is sunlight. You know, today we have an overcast day. It's not very sunny, so there's not going to be a whole lot of growth. But yesterday it was full sun. And even though this greenhouse might only get full light for 4 or 5 hours during that day, it's still enough to get a little bit of plant growth. So it doesn't the Persephone period doesn't necessarily mean that plants completely stop growing. If you give them the right environment, they'll keep growing, and you could get a whole nother crop of greens. And basically what I'm talking about today is all greens, plants that regrow during the winter. Now, another trick to accelerating plant growth in any time of year, especially with greens, is if you have a whole plant like this lettuce here, if you pick the outer leaves like this, if you go around and pick the outer leaves for your salad and keep that center growth tip undisturbed, the plant's going to regrow way faster. If you cut that center top, it's not going to grow back as fast because the plant is a little bit more stressed. So the whole concept here is keeping the plants as stress-free as possible so they can continue to grow when there is sunlight, and making sure that they don't have frost damage or fungal issues and stuff like that. But yeah, I've never seen this result before, so I'm really excited about it. And it's not just with this lettuce. There's other stuff around the farm that we're going to show you right now. All right, so now we're in my unheated high tunnel. So this is just a high tunnel with one layer of 6 mil greenhouse poly plastic. So really simple stuff. Pretty much every high tunnel has this kind of covering on it. There's no insulation value or anything. So the only value we're getting in here is keeping rain off, keeping wind off, and the solar gain that you get when the sun is out and warming up the high tunnel. And as you can see my breath today because it's overcast. There's not a lot of solar gain in here. We're getting like 10-15 degrees warmer than outside. On a sunny day, it was 60 degrees in here yesterday, and it was 35 outside or something. So sunny days make a big difference. But anyway, what I want to show you here is this is what's called Tokyo Bacana. This is this incredible winter green that has the most growth potential I've ever seen out of any kind of winter green so far. It grows ridiculously fast, almost too fast. This I did harvest back in November, just like everything else, and it's totally ready to harvest again. In fact, it's almost getting too big because we're getting some fungal or some rot issues with the plant itself, and it looks kind of bad right now because it is overcast. When it's sunnier, the plants kind of perk up more. But this is a total regrowth, total second crop, and I guarantee if I cut this now, I'd get another crop in February or March because the roots are established and the plant is healthy enough to where it would keep growing. And then right here next to me we have giant mustard, which is starting to do the same thing, but as you can tell, the plants are a little bit smaller, so it's harder to see the growth. Or they don't grow as fast as the Tokyo Bacana does, but it's still growing. And again, this will get at least one more cut before winter is over. So the key to this, since this is an unheated tunnel, it's even more important to use row cover. And this is what you call AG19, or it's the lightest weight row cover there is. I can't remember the technical name for it, but this is pretty much what I use for all winter crops. And you basically just use one layer for about below 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and once you get into below zero, I would double cover it. When it was this particular crop, way back in October, we had a blizzard where it got down to about 5 degrees, and I double covered it before it was even done growing its first growth, and it grew right through that situation because there was a lot more daylight back then, and the row cover kept the frost off. So we did double layer for that, and then at this point the plants are well acclimated to the cold, so I'm only doing a single layer of row cover because that lets more light in and warms the ground up to stay warm at night. And we're only getting 10 degrees at night here right now. So if it got to below that, I would start doing the double cover thing again. And then if it gets to -10, -20, I would probably triple cover, and I have enough row cover to do that. But that's only in an emergency situation, and there is a factor of the plants getting used to the cold. These plants are very used to the cold now, whereas back in October they weren't. So I was really coddling them back then, but they're tougher now, so they're going to keep growing. And yeah, the whole point to this video is if you keep your plants well protected and alive, they're going to keep producing for you, even if you do have crazy winters like we do. And I've had a lot of failures to figure that out. Like the last 2 years, there's been about a month or two where there's just been nothing coming off the farm. But right this year, we're actually in the position to keep producing 12 months a year, significant amount of product because of these techniques and stuff. And there's a lot of information out there about winter growing, but a lot of it comes down to catering it to your context. And my context is a lot different than the other winter growers I've seen talk about it, because we have 120-day growing season and incredibly cold winters with not a lot of snow. And snow can be really beneficial to you if you do live in a snowy climate. Like if this greenhouse was covered in snow right now, it would be insulated. So we don't really get much snow here. As you can see, there's no snow piled up next to me, and that cuts down your insulation value a lot when it does get below zero and stuff. So really got to do the row cover stuff right, but I'm finding that it definitely can still yield incredible results, and I'm pretty confident by February we're going to be swimming in green stuff, which is huge. I mean, even if you just had that result even in your garden, I think you'd be pretty happy, because most people don't have fresh green things coming out of their garden in February. So yeah, to me, winter growing is just very, very exciting, not just because of the winter, but because of the any kind of food that you're producing from February through May is a huge bonus plan, because most people don't have any food coming out of their garden at that time of year, at least in a northern climate like us. So anyway, this is the Tokyo Bacana, and now I'm going to show you some more crops that did really well and are still growing. So here we have another example of a crop that's almost completely ready to harvest again. This cilantro I harvested back in about the same time I harvested this lettuce, about first week in November. This parsley behind me, same thing, and it is pretty much ready to harvest again. Now, these two crops are a little bit less tolerant of -20 than a lot of the other crops that we grow in the winter. So I do have them in this high tunnel where we do have the climate battery behind me, and that does help keep it, 10 to 15 degrees warmer in here than it would be in an unheated high tunnel. But even in an unheated high tunnel, I'm pretty confident you could do this. It just probably wouldn't grow back as fast. But basically the concept with all of this stuff is harvest as much as you can while you have it, and protect the crops as best you can when it gets extremely cold, below zero, single digits, -20. Basically for every 10 degrees below 10 degrees Fahrenheit, add another layer of row cover. And if you're diligent with that, and then you take the row cover off when it's really light and warm out, you're gonna get plant growth, and you're gonna get more food in the middle of winter when there's nothing else to eat. You might have some storage carrots or potatoes or something like that, but if you do this, you're gonna have green stuff to eat in the wintertime, which I don't know about you, but I get really excited about that, because especially in times like this where we're just had the holidays and we're having lots of heavy food, I love to have something fresh and green on the table. And in Wyoming, it's just a huge godsend. I'm sure some of you people in the South or warmer climates are a little more used to this kind of thing, but for me, this is a huge deal, and it means more food and more nutrition in the dead of winter. So even though I have some crop failures, like I do with the entire growing season, some of this lettuce you see here is not doing very well, and I think it's something to do with fungal issues. I still don't really know, but this lettuce over here is doing amazing. So it was still worth it for me to plant that crop, and it's always worth it to plant the crop and try and see what you get, because when you actually get a yield like we've got behind me with this cilantro and this lettuce, it's total bonus plan, and it's a bonus plan this year, but if I keep doing this and get really good at it, it's something you could actually rely on and get fresh food all year round. So to me, it's a really big deal. I'm really excited about it. Hopefully you are too, and hopefully you got something from this lesson, and we'll see you in the next one.